Okay, so did you know there's this one book? It's pretty famous. And it supposedly helped create, well, tons of fortunes, influenced all sorts of leaders.
Huh, you must be talking about Think and Grow Rich.
Exactly. By Napoleon Hill. And the interesting thing is it never directly names its core secret. It's all based on years he spent studying really successful people.
Right. And for everyone listening today, maybe you're looking to, get some solid knowledge efficiently, find those aha moments without getting bogged down.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Well, this deep dive is kind of designed for that. We're going to try and pull out the really potent insights from Hill's work.
For sure. So our source is Think and Grow Rich. And it basically promises this hidden formula for success for wealth. Hill built it from studying hundreds of really prominent men back then.
And what's really interesting is his claim, isn't it? That by reading it, by engaging with these ideas, you don't just learn from them, but you tap into your own potential.
You own knowledge.
So yeah, our mission today is pretty simple. Unpack the key principles from Think and Grow Rich that might be, immediately valuable or at least thought-provoking for you listening.
All right, let's dive in then. Let's start with the big mystery, the secret.
Okay, the elephant in the room.
Right. Hill keeps talking about the secret to wealth and success all through the book. Hints, clues, but he never just says, here it is.
Nope. The story goes that Andrew Carnegie gave him the secret, or at least the inspiration.
And told him to share it with the world, but only with people who are genuinely looking for it.
Which leads to Hill's whole idea that if you're ready, you'll just recognize it. It'll click somehow while you're reading.
It's a clever approach, really. It makes you engage more.
It does. And it wasn't just Hill saying this stuff was powerful. He got some pretty hefty endorsements early on.
Oh, yeah. Like who?
Well, there's a letter mentioned from a former U.S. president and a former Chief Justice. They were praising his earlier work, The Law of Success, which was kind of the precursor.
And what did they like about it?
They said it was a really well-organized philosophy, super valuable for leaders, in any field.
That's pretty high praise.
Yeah.
Shows it wasn't just seen as a get-rich-quick thing.
Not at all. It was seen as a philosophy of achievement. Then you've got F.W. Woolworth.
The five and dime store guy.
That's the one. He apparently believed his whole chain of stores, hugely successful, was built on these very principles.
Wow.
Yeah, he even said the Woolworth building, that iconic skyscraper, could basically be a monument to the philosophy.
Okay, that's a serious endorsement. He's putting his legacy behind it almost.
Pretty much. He saw a direct link between these ideas and his massive real-world success.
And wasn't there someone else? A shipping guy?
Right, a steamship magnate.
Okay.
He apparently said something like, I wish I'd known this stuff 50 years ago.
Huh, yeah. You can imagine thinking that, right? What could have been different?
Exactly. It speaks to that feeling of, untapped potential, how transformative these ideas felt to people.
Okay, so endorsements are one thing. Did Hill show it working? Like actual examples?
Oh, absolutely. That's a big part of the book. He gives case studies, stories of people who supposedly used the secret.
Like Charles M. Schwab.
Yep. Hill connects Schwab's application of the secret to the formation of U.S. Steel, which was, back then, worth something like $600 million. Astronomical.
Good grief. So not small potatoes.
Definitely not. It suggests this secret could fuel really massive undertakings.
What about smaller scale? Did it work for regular folks?
Well, there's the story of Arthur Nash, a tailor in Cincinnati.
Okay.
His business was apparently failing, near bankruptcy. He tried using this formula, and it worked. Big time. Business turned around, made a lot of money, and even got $1 million worth of free positive press.
A tailor? That's fascinating. So it wasn't just for industrialists.
Seems not. It shows the potential for, a complete turnaround, even when things look bleak.
Any other interesting cases?
Yeah, a couple more. Stuart Austin Weir in Texas, he apparently learned the secret and was so convinced he quit his job to study law. And succeeded.
Changed his whole career path based on it.
Seems so. And Jennings Randolph, who Hill apparently told the secret to when he graduated college, he went on to be elected to Congress 3 times.
So politics too. It
Yeah.
really does seem versatile.
That's the impression Hill gives, not just about money, but success in different fields, driven by these core ideas.
What about organizations? Did he see it used there?
Yes, J.G. Chaplin, who was president of LaSalle Extension University, Hill worked there for a bit and saw Chaplin use the formula to make LaSalle a really big deal in distance education.
So leadership, organizational growth.
Exactly. Suggest the principles can help scale things up.
And Hill kept saying it wasn't about education level, right?
Yeah,
He used Edison a lot.
he did. Thomas Edison, barely any formal schooling, but obviously a genius inventor. Hill uses him as proof that you don't need degrees if you grasp this secret and apply it.
That's pretty empowering, isn't it? Focuses on your mindset, your readiness.
Totally. It shifts the focus inward onto applying the principles rather than just external stuff like diplomas.
Okay, so we've got the background, the secret, the proof. Let's get into the principles themselves. What's first?
First up, and maybe the most important, is definite desire.
Okay, desire. Makes sense.
But not just any desire. Hill tells the story of Edwin C. Barnes. This guy had a burning ambition, not just to work for Thomas Edison, but to be his business associate, his partner.
That's a pretty specific, ambitious goal, especially if he didn't know Edison.
Right, and he had no money to even get to Edison. But the desire was intense. Hill stresses how definite it was. You need that clear goal and then a plan, even if the path isn't obvious at first.
So laser focus. And Barnes apparently burned all bridges. What does that mean?
It means he was all in, no backup plan, total commitment. That intensity seems key. So for anyone listening, it's about getting really clear what's that burning desire.
Got it. Intense, definite desire. What follows that?
Persistence. Can't just desire it, you have to stick with it.
The R.U. Darby story. The gold mine.
That's the classic one. Darby and his uncle quit digging just 3 feet from a huge vein of gold because they hit a tough spot.
Ouch. The ultimate if only.
Exactly. The lesson is obvious. Don't stop too soon. Setbacks happen. Darby supposedly learned from this, became a top life insurance salesman because he wouldn't take no for an answer easily.
He applied a lesson. Persistence pays off.
Right. And then there's that slightly weird story Hill includes right after about Darby's uncle and a kid.
Oh yeah, the one where the child somehow dominates the uncle. What was that about?
It's a bit cryptic, honestly. Hill uses it to introduce the idea that there are powerful unseen forces at play, maybe hinting that the secret involves tapping into those. It's intriguing, if a bit strange.
Okay. File that under mysterious. What's next?
Next are faith and autosuggestion, and they're really linked.
Faith. Like religious faith.
Not necessarily. Hill calls it the eternal elixir that gives thoughts power. It's belief. Conviction.
Okay. And autosuggestion.
That's the idea that you believe what you keep telling yourself. True or not. If you constantly tell yourself you'll succeed, you start to believe it. If you tell yourself you'll fail, well...
mind over matter, sort of.
Kind of. He even gives a self-confidence formula, like practical steps. Have a definite purpose, demand persistent action from yourself, use affirmations to build that self-reliance.
So actively programming your own belief.
That's the core idea. Using faith and suggestion together to influence your subconscious and shape your reality.
Interesting. What about knowledge? Is that part of it?
Yes, but with a twist. Specialized knowledge. Hill argues knowledge itself isn't power.
Really? I thought knowledge was power.
Not just having it, it needs to be organized into practical plans and aimed at a specific goal. Think Ford and Edison, again, limited schooling, but masters at finding and using the specific knowledge they needed.
So it's about targeted, applicable knowledge, not just general learning.
Exactly, and continuous learning, adapting, specializing for what you want to achieve. You don't have to know everything yourself either. You need to know where to get the knowledge.
Okay, that makes sense. Where do plans come from?
From imagination. Hill calls it the workshop of the mind.
The workshop? I like that.
Yeah. He splits it into 2 types. Synthetic imagination, rearranging old ideas into new combinations, and creative imagination, where truly new ideas, flashes of inspiration, come from, like intuition.
So one is like building with existing Lego bricks. The other is inventing a whole new kind of brick.
That's a great analogy. And he says you need both. You use imagination to turn that burning desire into actual concrete plans.
Okay, desire, faith, knowledge, imagination, plans. How do you execute the plans? Alone.
Rarely alone for big goals. That leads to organized planning and the mastermind.
The mastermind. That sounds important.
It is. It's about forming alliances, a group of people you work with in harmony. They bring their own experience, knowledge, abilities, imagination.
Like a board of advisors or a project team.
Sort of, but with a deeper sense of shared purpose and mental synergy. Hill believed that when minds work together harmoniously, they create a third mind, the mastermind, which is greater than the sum of its parts.
So collaboration is key. Nobody achieves big things solo.
That's his point. You need that collective brain power and support. For listeners, think. Who could be in your mastermind? Whose skills complement yours?
Good question. And what about leading such a group, or just leading in general?
Ah, yes, leadership. Hill lists key qualities, things like unwavering courage, self-control, fairness, making definite decisions.
Decisiveness again.
Yep. Having clear plans, doing more than you're paid for, going the extra mile. Also having a pleasing personality, empathy, understanding.
Sounds like good modern leadership advice, actually.
It really does. He contrasted this with older leadership by force styles, saying the future was about cooperation.
Makes sense. Okay, what if you're not leading a company, but just trying to get ahead yourself, selling your skills?
That's covered too, under marketing personal services. Basically, how to sell yourself effectively.
Job hunting advice from the 1930s. Is it still relevant?
Surprisingly, yes. He talks about smart planning, writing personalized application letters with a brief, like a portfolio today, outlining your qualifications and showing you understand the employer's business.
Okay, doing your homework.
Definitely. Using connections, networking, even suggesting working on probation to prove your worth. And he highlighted a shift towards partnership between employers and employees, focusing on service, being a go-giver.
That go-giver idea feels very current, too. Value proposition.
Absolutely. Very practical stuff.
What about the flip side? Why do people fail?
He addresses that directly. Causes of failure. He lists 30 common reasons.
30? Wow. Like what?
Things we've touched on: lack of definite purpose, lack of persistence, indecision, fear. He encourages honest self-analysis. Are any of these holding you back?
Is there anything you can't control?
He mentions unfavorable hereditary background as the one thing that's hard to correct, but implies almost everything else is within your control, especially assessing the quality and quantity of service you provide.
So mostly, failure is on us.
That's the strong implication. It's about taking responsibility.
We mentioned decision before, but he gives it its own focus.
Yes, the power of decision. He hammers this home. Successful people decide quickly and firmly. Indecision, he says, is a major cause of failure, often rooted in fear. Leaders decide. Followers waver.
Be decisive. Got it.
And tied to that, persistence comes back again.
We already covered that, didn't we?
Yes, but he really emphasizes it as crucial for overcoming temporary defeat. Defeat isn't failure unless you accept it. It's just a signal to make new plans.
Like James J. Hill or Henry Ford, who face huge setbacks.
Exactly. And he links persistence to other things. Definite purpose, self-reliance, clear plans, accurate knowledge, cooperation, mastermind, willpower, and making it a habit.
So persistence isn't just gritting your teeth, it's built on these other principles.
Precisely. It's a supported effort.
Okay, what about those fears that cause indecision?
Right. Outwitting fear. Hill identifies 6 basic fears.
6, let me guess, failure.
That's related, but the big ones he names are fear of poverty.
Okay, common one.
Fear of criticism.
Yep, that stops a lot of people.
Fear of ill health.
Worrying about getting sick.
Fear of loss of love.
Relationship fears.
Fear of old age. And fear of death.
The big existential ones.
Yeah. He argues poverty is maybe the most destructive fear. And things like indecision, doubt, worry are just symptoms. Fear of criticism kills initiative. Fear of ill health can actually make you sick through suggestion.
It's a heavy list.
Yeah.
How do you outwit them?
Primarily through definite decisions, faith, and understanding that most fears are just states of mind. Confront them.
Easier said than done, maybe.
Perhaps, but acknowledging them is the first step. Then we get into the mind itself. The subconscious mind.
Ah, the subconscious. How does that fit in?
Hill says it's deeply influenced by thoughts, especially thoughts mixed with strong emotion or feeling.
Emotionally charged thoughts stick more.
That's the idea. Positive emotions feed it positive instructions. Negative emotions feed it negative ones. Faith, that strong belief we talked about, is key to programming it positively. Like setting the autopilot on a plane, you program it with consistent thoughts and feelings.
So guard your thoughts and emotions carefully.
Very carefully. They're instructions to your subconscious powerhouse.
What about intuition? Gut feelings.
That's the 6th sense, as Hill calls it. He basically equates it with creative imagination working at a higher level.
So not psychic power, but highly developed intuition.
Exactly. He says most people don't use it much, but it's the source of genius, invention. Think Edison again. And crucially, he believes it can be cultivated, developed through practice. It's not just for a chosen few.
You can train your intuition. Interesting.
That's the claim. Then there's a more unusual one.
Oh, do?
The power of sex transmutation.
Excuse me. Sex what?
Transmutation. It sounds provocative, and maybe it is, but his idea is about harnessing the powerful energy of sexual desire and consciously redirecting it, transmuting it into other creative or productive outlets towards achieving goals, fueling ambition, creativity.
So channeling that energy. Not suppressing it, but redirecting it.
That's the concept. He links high achievement and even genius to the ability to do this effectively. Just having the energy isn't enough. It needs to be channeled. It's definitely a product of its time, but the core idea is about harnessing powerful drives.
An interesting, if maybe controversial idea today.
For sure. Related to that, he also briefly discusses the influence of women.
How so?
Basically, acknowledging the power women can have to influence men, often tied to a man's desire to please or win admiration, and that women who understand this can be very supportive influences. Again, very much framed in the context of its era.
Acknowledging relationship dynamics, then.
Yeah. And one last technique he shares is his personal practice of imaginary counsel.
Imagining counsel, like talking to himself.
Sort of, but more structured. He described holding imaginary meetings in his mind with historical figures he admired: Lincoln, Napoleon, Emerson, Edison.
Seriously, what for?
To absorb their traits. He'd focus on their qualities, imagine their advice on problems. It's a powerful use of suggestion and focused thought, a way to internalize the qualities you admire in others.
Wow, that's creative. Using visualization and role models very deliberately.
Exactly. It shows how much he believed in actively shaping your own mindset.
Okay, wow. We have covered a lot of ground here. From desire and faith to masterminds and imaginary counsels.
It's a dense book, packed with ideas.
So just to quickly wrap our heads around the main themes, it starts with that definite desire, right? Then you need unwavering persistence, fueled by faith and autosuggestion.
You need specialized knowledge, organized into plans using imagination.
And you probably need help, the Mastermind Alliance, and effective leadership qualities.
Don't forget marketing personal services smartly, understanding the causes of failure to avoid them, and developing the power of decision.
Right, and overcoming fear, understanding the subconscious mind, maybe even tapping into the sixth sense.
And finally, those ideas about sex transmutation and the power of suggestion through things like his imaginary counsel.
It's a whole philosophy, really.
It really is. So, thinking about all that, here's maybe a final question for everyone listening.
Okay.
Considering all these principles, these stories, what one secret or idea really stood out to you? What resonated the most from this deep dive?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And maybe even more importantly, what's one small, immediate action you could take, like today, to start applying that particular insight in your own life?
Putting it into practice, that's the key, isn't it? These ideas are powerful, but only if they're used.
Exactly.
So the final thought might just be that the power to achieve amazing things, according to Hill anyway, is really within reach. It just depends on understanding these principles.
And then having the persistence to actually apply them consistently.
Yeah. Your journey starts now, essentially. Food for thought.